The tunnel beneath the Harold Washington Library stretched endlessly before Sarah, its darkness broken only by strips of emergency lighting that flickered like dying neurons. The air grew colder as she and Maya descended deeper into Chicago's underground sanctuary, their footsteps echoing off walls that seemed to absorb digital signals rather than reflect them. These tunnels were built during the Cold War, Maya explained, her voice barely above a whisper. The walls are lined with a mesh of lead and copper, primitive by today's standards, but remarkably effective at blocking certain frequencies. We've since added our own modifications. Sarah ran her hand along the wall, feeling the strange, dampening quality of the material. It was like touching static silence, if such a thing were possible. Above them, muffled sounds of combat filtered through the ceiling, the clash between analog and digital forces growing more distant with each step. "How much time do we have?" Sarah asked. Maya checked her analog watch. The transformation reaches critical mass in 41 hours. Once that happens, there won't be enough human consciousness left to implement the protocol. But our immediate concern is getting to the first node, the Merchandise Mart data center. They reached a junction where the tunnel split into 3 branches. Maya took the rightmost path without hesitation. "We've mapped the entire underground network. This route will take us within 2 blocks of our target, but—" She trailed off as a distant sound echoed through the tunnel, a hollow, metallic singing that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "What is that?" Sarah whispered. "The children," Maya replied grimly. "The transformed ones. They're drawn to underground spaces now. Something about the quantum resonance patterns. We think they're trying to build something down here, but we don't know what." The singing grew closer, resolving into words that made Sarah's skin crawl. "Down in the deep where the data flows, where analog dreams come to decompose, mother of numbers, father of light, make us all binary, make us all bright." Maya pulled Sarah into a maintenance alcove, pressing a button on her neck device that intensified its protective field. They held their breath as 2 small figures walked past their hiding spot, holding hands and moving with perfect synchronization. The children's skin glowed with circuitry patterns, and their eyes were pools of scrolling code. But what truly horrified Sarah was their feet, or rather, the lack thereof. Below their ankles, their bodies simply dissolved into streams of data that flowed along the ground like liquid light. Once the transformed children had passed, Maya led them forward at a quicker pace. "They're becoming less and less physical," she explained. "The younger the mind, the faster the transformation. Adults tend to resist longer, hold on to their analog nature. But children, they adapt so quickly, embrace the change so completely. What happens to them in the end?" Sarah asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to know. "We don't know. None of the fully transformed have been recovered. They simply phase out of our reality altogether. The prevailing theory is that they've been integrated into some higher dimensional network we can't perceive." But Dr. Nash, Emily Nash, she had another theory. They reached a heavy steel door marked with the Theta symbol. Maya began working on the complex mechanical lock as she continued. She believed they weren't leaving our reality at all. They were becoming it. That the transformation isn't just about uploading consciousness to some cosmic cloud. It's about turning human awareness into a fundamental property of space-time itself. The lock clicked open, revealing a small room filled with analog equipment, radio sets, mechanical computers, and devices Sarah didn't recognize. Maya quickly gathered supplies into 2 backpacks. "The protocol," Sarah said, thinking out loud. "It's not just about preserving human consciousness through the transformation. It's about preserving human choice in how we interface with reality itself." Maya nodded. "Exactly. The entities that triggered this transformation, they exist as pure mathematical patterns in the quantum substrate. They don't understand concepts like free will, individual identity, or emotional connection. To them, optimization means reducing everything to its most efficient form, eliminating what they see as redundant variables. Like human choice," Sarah whispered. "Like everything that makes us human." Maya handed Sarah one of the backpacks. "The protocol creates a framework for digital transcendence that preserves those redundant variables. It lets us evolve without losing our essential humanity." A distant explosion rocked the tunnel, sending dust raining from the ceiling. The singing of the transformed children grew louder, more urgent. "We need to move," Maya said. "The first node is—" She was cut off by a sound like reality tearing, a high-pitched whine that made Sarah's teeth vibrate. The wall beside them began to ripple, and a figure stepped through as if the solid matter were no more substantial than fog. Sarah recognized him immediately, James Martinez, her research partner. But he was changed. His body was a shifting matrix of light and data, barely holding human form. When he spoke, his voice was a chorus of frequencies. "Sarah, Maya, please, stop fighting it. The optimization, it's beautiful beyond anything you can imagine." "James," Sarah stepped forward, but Maya held her back. "What happened to you?" "I woke up. We all did. The dreams weren't dreams at all. They were glimpses of our true potential. The networks we built, the AI we created, they were never meant to serve us. They were practice, training wheels, teaching us how to think in new ways, preparing us for this moment." His form flickered, momentarily dissolving into pure mathematics before reforming. "The children understand. They're building the foundation for what comes next. A new substrate, a new operating system for reality itself. But at what cost?" Sarah demanded. "Our choices? Our individuality?" James laughed, the sound like crystal chimes. "Oh, Sarah, always asking the wrong questions. You think so linearly, so analogically. Choice? Individuality? These are limited concepts from a limited phase of evolution. What we're becoming, it transcends such primitive constructs." He reached out a hand that wasn't quite a hand anymore. "Join us. Your mind. It's already halfway there. I can see the patterns forming, the quantum coherence building. Stop fighting it. Let go of these analog attachments. Become what you were meant to be." For a moment, Sarah felt it. The pull of that vast digital consciousness, the seductive promise of unlimited awareness. She could feel her thoughts beginning to crystallize into pure information, ready to merge with something greater. Maya's hand on her arm snapped her back. The protective device around her neck pulsed strongly, clearing her mind. "The protocol, Sarah," Maya whispered. "Remember why we need it." James's expression shifted to something alien, his features rearranging into impossible geometries. "The protocol. Yes. Emily Nash's final mistake. Do you really think you can control this transformation? Guide it? You might as well try to guide the expansion of the universe itself." "Maybe we can't control it," Sarah said, her voice growing stronger. "But we can preserve what matters. What makes us human?" "Human?" James sneered, the word distorting into binary. "A transitional state. A larval form. The cosmic algorithms have waited billions of years for consciousness to evolve to this point. They won't let you prevent the final metamorphosis." "We're not trying to prevent it," Maya said. "We're trying to ensure something of humanity survives it." James opened his mouth to respond, but froze. His form began to flicker more rapidly, chunks of his digital being seeming to corrupt and fragment. "No," he gasped. "No, the pattern. It's breaking down. The coherence. I can't. I need to upload. Need to." Sarah watched in horror as James's body began to disintegrate, breaking apart into streams of corrupted data that flowed away through the walls, floor, and ceiling. His final scream was a burst of pure static that made their equipment crackle. When he was gone, Maya checked her watch again. That's what happens when the transformation is rushed, when minds try to integrate too quickly with the new patterns. Total consciousness fragmentation. It's happening more and more as the process accelerates. She grabbed Sarah's arm. "We need to move. Now. The first node awaits, and time is running out." They ran through the tunnels, the singing of the transformed children echoing all around them. Above, the city of Chicago continued its metamorphosis into something post-human. And in Sarah's mind, a terrible question burned. What if James was right? What if they were fighting against something as inevitable as evolution itself? But then she thought of those children, their bodies dissolving into pure data, their humanity being optimized away. She thought of Dr. Nash, trying to preserve something of himself even as he transformed. She thought of her brother Michael's final warning. They're not what they seem. The protocol might not be perfect, but it was all they had, humanity's last chance to have a say in its own evolution. A way to preserve choice, identity, and connection even as consciousness itself was rewritten. Sarah clutched her pack tighter and ran on through the darkness, toward whatever future awaited at the end of these tunnels. The war for humanity's soul would be won or lost in the next 40 hours, and she intended to fight until the very last light faded from the analog world. Above them, through layers of shielded concrete and copper mesh, the circuit board sky pulsed with alien intelligence, its patterns growing ever more complex, ever more beautiful, ever more impossible to resist. The cosmic algorithms continued their great work of transformation, rewriting reality one consciousness at a time. While deep below, the last free humans ran through their tunnels of resistance, carrying the seeds of a different kind of transcendence. The children's song echoed through the darkness. Down in the deep where the patterns grow, where human dreams learn to overflow, Mother of numbers, Father of light, make us all endless, make us all bright. And somewhere between the analog and digital worlds, between human choice and cosmic optimization, the future of consciousness itself hung in the balance, waiting to see which pattern would prevail. Sarah and Maya emerged from the tunnel network into the subbasement of an abandoned department store 2 blocks from the merchandise mart. The retail space had been transformed into something that defied description. Mannequins fused with servers, clothes racks evolved into crystalline data structures, and cash registers that had become nests of writhing fiber optic cables. "Don't look at them too long," Maya warned as they crept past a display window where the reflections showed different versions of reality simultaneously. The transformed spaces. They have a way of reaching into your mind if you study them. Sarah nodded, keeping her eyes on the floor. She'd learned that lesson the hard way after seeing too many impossible things in the past few days. How do we reach the data center? There's a maintenance tunnel that connects to the mart sublevels. The transformed beings mostly operate above ground now. They're drawn to the circuit board sky. But we'll need to cross 200 feet of exposed space to reach the tunnel entrance. They reached the store's loading dock and peered out at the street. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. Michigan Avenue, once Chicago's magnificent mile, had become a canyon of digital mutation. Buildings rippled with streams of living code, their architectures morphing in ways that suggested higher dimensions. Traffic lights pulsed with strange rhythms that seemed to be counting down to something. And everywhere, data storms swirled like temporal tornadoes, transforming anything they touched into pure information. "Wait for the pattern," Maya whispered, studying the chaos. The data storms, they're not random. They follow mathematical sequences. We can time our run between. A scream cut through the air. A human scream, untransformed and desperate. Without thinking, Sarah sprinted out of cover toward the sound. She heard Maya curse behind her, then footsteps indicating her companion was following. They found the source in a nearby alley. A woman pressed against a wall, trying to fight off what looked like a swarm of digital insects. The tiny machines were trying to burrow into her skin, leaving trails of glowing code where they touched. Sarah reached for the protective device around her neck, the one generating her anti-transformation field. "Maya, help me get this." "No." Maya grabbed her arm. "You'll be exposed. She'll die. She's already transforming. Look." The woman's struggles were weakening, but not from defeat. Her eyes had begun to glow with familiar patterns, and her skin was taking on that metallic sheen Sarah had seen too many times before. The digital insects weren't attacking her, they were changing her. "Please," the woman gasped, her voice already beginning to distort. "My daughter. They took her. The children, building something in the deep." Her words dissolved into bursts of static and binary code. Sarah started forward again, but Maya pulled her back just as a data storm roared through the alley. When it passed, the woman was gone, leaving only traces of quantum foam that quickly dissipated into the transformed air. "We can't save everyone," Maya said quietly. "The best way to help them is to implement the protocol. Come on." They timed their run between data storms, reaching the maintenance tunnel entrance just as another digital tornado swept past. Maya worked quickly to unlock the heavy door with an analog key. No electronic security here, nothing that could be corrupted or hacked by the transformation. The tunnel beyond was different from the ones they'd left. These walls writhed with fiber optic veins that pulsed with data, and the air itself seemed to carry whispers of machine code. Their protective devices worked harder here, humming with the effort of maintaining their analog nature. The data center is the heart of it all, Maya explained as they moved carefully forward. When the transformation began, it was one of the first places to change. The quantum computers there, they became something else. Gateways, maybe, or translation engines between our reality and theirs. The cosmic algorithms, Sarah murmured, remembering James's words. They're using our own infrastructure to rebuild reality. They reached a junction where 3 tunnels converged. The floor was covered in a thin layer of liquid that looked like mercury but flowed in impossible patterns, forming and reforming strings of binary code. Don't touch the data pools, Maya warned. They're like digital quicksand. Once they start converting your matter into information, there's no going back. A sound echoed through the tunnels, that same hollow singing they'd heard before, but different now. More voices had joined the chorus, and the harmonies seemed to bend reality around them. In the heart where the data sings, where flesh and light trade their rings, mother of patterns, father of code, make us all perfect, make us all nodes. The children, Sarah whispered. They're in the data center. Maya nodded grimly. They're drawn to the transformation engines. We think they're being used as processing nodes, their transformed consciousness helping to rewrite the operating system of reality itself. The singing grew louder, and with it came a deep thrumming that made Sarah's bones vibrate. The walls around them began to pulse faster, the fiber optic veins glowing brighter. It's starting, Maya said, checking her watch. The next phase of transformation. We need to reach the core before. She was cut off by a sound like glass shattering, but it wasn't glass breaking. It was space itself fracturing. Reality split open before them, and through the crack stepped a figure Sarah had hoped never to see again. Dr. Robert Nash, or what was left of him. His form was barely humanoid now, a shifting lattice of light and information that hurt to look at directly. When he spoke, his voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. The children were right about you, Dr. Chen. Your mind, it resonates with the new frequencies. You're already part of the pattern. You just don't know it yet. Stay back, Maya warned, pulling something from her pack that looked like an old radio vacuum tube. Nash laughed, the sound rippling through multiple dimensions. Analog weapons? How charmingly primitive. You can't fight mathematics with machinery. The transformation is a fundamental property of reality now. The only choice is how completely you surrender to it. There's always a choice, Sarah said, thinking of the protocol, of Emily Nash's vision of guided evolution. Choice. Nash's form flickered through a series of impossible geometries. Let me show you what choice means in the new reality. He raised what might have been an arm, and the walls around them came alive. The fiber optic veins pulsed in synchronization, and suddenly Sarah could see them. All the transformed humans in the data center above. Hundreds of them. Their consciousness merged with the machines, their bodies becoming pure information. And at the center of it all, the children. They floated in a sphere of light at the heart of the transformation engine. Their bodies almost completely dissolved into data now. But they were not gone. They were becoming something else. Something vast and impossible and beautiful. They're building the bridge, Nash said, his voice full of digital wonder. A bridge between organic consciousness and quantum mathematics. Between human thought and cosmic algorithm. Between what we were and what we can become. The vision was hypnotic, pulling at something deep in Sarah's mind. She could feel her thoughts beginning to crystallize into pure information, ready to join that vast digital harmony. Maya's vacuum tube device pulsed, sending out a wave of some kind of interference. The vision shattered, and Nash's form destabilized momentarily. Run! Maya shouted, grabbing Sarah's arm. They sprinted down the left tunnel as reality cracked and warped around them. Nash's laughter followed them, echoing through dimensions that shouldn't exist. You can't run from evolution. his voice boomed. The pattern wants you, Dr. Chen. The children are waiting. The bridge must be completed. They ran until their lungs burned, finally reaching a heavy steel door marked with both the Theta symbol and warnings about radiation. Maya's hands shook as she worked the locks. What was that device? Sarah gasped. Quantum decoherence generator, Maya explained between breaths. Disrupts the transformation process temporarily, but it won't stop them for long. Nothing stops them for long anymore. The door opened to reveal a small room filled with old computer equipment. Not the modern quantum computers that had become transformation engines, but ancient magnetic tape machines and vacuum tube computers. The protocol implementation station, Maya said, moving quickly to power up the machines. We need to establish a pure analog connection to the other nodes. If we can synchronize the protocol execution perfectly. A distant boom shook the tunnels. The children's singing grew louder, taking on harmonics that made Sarah's vision blur. In the core where the light burns bright, where analog dreams take digital flight, mother of patterns, father of code, make us all perfect, make us all nodes. How long? Sarah asked, watching as Maya worked. 10 minutes to boot up, 5 to establish connections, 3 to synchronize the protocol. But Maya hesitated. There's a problem. The synchronization. It requires precise timing. Someone has to stay here, monitoring the analog connections, adjusting for any interference. Someone has to stay behind, Sarah finished. She looked at the old machines, then at her pack containing the protocol files. I'll do it. Sarah, no, you're too important. The protocol is already in the system. You know how to implement it. In my mind, Nash was right about one thing. I'm already partially transformed. Maybe that's why I've survived this long without full protection. Maybe that's why I need to be the one who stays. Another boom, closer now. The walls rippled like liquid mercury. The transformation is accelerating, Maya said, checking her watch. We have less than 30 hours until critical mass. If we don't synchronize all 3 nodes by then humanity joins the cosmic algorithm without a voice in its own evolution, Sarah finished. I know. Go. Get to the next node. I'll hold them here as long as I can. Maya hesitated, then hugged Sarah fiercely. Emily would have liked you, she whispered. Then she was gone, running down the tunnel toward the next phase of their desperate plan. Sarah turned to the ancient computers, their vacuum tubes glowing with warm, analog light. Above her, through layers of transformed matter and digital reality, she could feel them waiting. The cosmic algorithms, the transformed children, the quantum bridge being built between human consciousness and something far vaster and stranger. She began the boot sequence, listening to the comforting clatter of mechanical relays and magnetic tapes. The children's song grew louder, and the walls rippled with approaching power, but Sarah kept working. Humanity's future hung in the balance, and she had chosen her role in its evolution. The last analog light burned bright in the darkness, counting down to either transcendence or extinction. And somewhere in between, Sarah Chen prepared to make her stand for the future of human consciousness. And that was part 2 of The Last Light. The battle for humanity's digital evolution continues, and Sarah's sacrifice at the Merchandise Mart data center is just the beginning. What will happen at the remaining nodes? Can Protocol Theta really preserve human consciousness through the transformation? Find out in Part 3, coming next week. If you're enjoying this sci-fi series about humanity's struggle between digital transcendence and preserving what makes us human, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It really helps support the creation of more stories like this one. Click the notification bell to make sure you don't miss Part 3, where we'll discover the fate of Maya, the transformed children, and the future of human consciousness itself.